welcome, American Sign Language Services community. Awesome! This is our new platform. How's it look, right? It's a lot of work to put on a show like this, so I hope you really enjoy it. Today is going to be our first class. We're going to teach a few things to start our program, and they're going to be brief, less than 10 minutes most of the time for sure. And then we're going to follow it up afterwards with tutoring. And so we can say, hey, Julius, you said something in sign language that didn't match English. Or the opposite, you said something in English, but the sign language looked funny. How do you say it in sign, ASL, right? Because I'm teaching mostly hearing, deaf people already know signs, so they're not participating in this class. Mostly it's going to be hearing students, high school, college, etc., adults who haven't been exposed to sign language. So a little bit about myself. I am a college professor. I have taught several semesters. I'm also a professional certified sign language interpreter. And the reason why I feel so comfortable signing and speaking at the same time, because sign language is my first language. I was born hearing to two deaf parents. And I'm also the oldest, my brother and I, and so they depended on me for communication before we had the technology we have today. And so that's why I'm able to sign and speak at the same time so fluently. For some things that don't make sense when you sign and speak at the same time, I will do both. I will say it with sign, and then I will give you both ASL versus English and compare both of them. So let's go ahead and begin today. For those of you who haven't seen the intro, I want to go ahead and show you the intro. Hi, everyone. Oh, I'm so touched, everyone who's joined our small community of sign language here. We are American Sign Language Services community, and my name is Julius, Satterle, Julius for short. We're a new nonprofit, American Sign Language Services community. This is our website. It can be found at aslsc.com. Easy to remember. Right now we have zero funding, so if you are able to support us, we would love that. We plan on teaching live tutoring, live classes here online as much as possible. As much as we can afford to anyway at our current budget. But I want to say thank you all for subscribing, for joining, and I look forward to seeing you all in class. All right, well, there it is there. We did release that, but not everyone probably saw it. So let's get started with the first day of class. This class is going to be focused on more of a college level, but we do also plan to have classes for baby sign language as well as toddler sign language. And so, for those of you who really want a very, very basic structure, as well as because I have kids myself, we're going to have, songs like Wheels on the Bus, things like that, that you can sing along with sign. Even teachers will be able to show some of these videos, hopefully, because they will all be perfect. That's our goal. All right, so let's begin today. Let's go ahead and start. We're going to start with level 1. Chapters 1 and 2 is what we're going to be discussing. And I'm picking different topics and different things that you can focus on. And later on, we're going to be having tutoring that'll be scheduled, will be announced. So you'll be able to join the tutoring classes and you'll be able to ask your questions via chat. We also might have the ability to add Zoom classes, but like I said, our budget is very limited. So what we can do right now depends on our funding, of course. So let's proceed. So you're wondering yourself, deaf, ASL, what is that, right? So deafness and hard of hearing are the two acceptable terms, right? You can call a person deaf. Most people are accepting of that, or you can call them hard of hearing. Of course, you always have to follow individual preferences. Some people don't like any of that. They don't want to be labeled at all. It depends on each individual. So always ask, what do you prefer, right? The label, if you must give them a label. Um, so some labels that are discouraged would be, for example, drawing a blank. Anyway, hearing impaired. That's what I'm trying to say. Hearing impaired is actually a medical term for deaf people. It's not a self description or label that I would say most deaf people use. They don't say I'm hearing impaired, right? That would be like me saying, for example, you're signing impaired, right? You don't know how to sign, for example. So it's important you know that difference. And the other thing is the word handicap, right? Handicap is a government term given to deaf people. Some deaf people don't consider themselves handicapped at all. As a matter of fact, most don't. Handicap came back from a time where they used to allow begging by getting your cap in hand, right? Handicap, cap in hand. And they would beg for money. And that's some people who are older, generations, they really don't like that word at all, handicap. So don't use that ever. Deaf culture, deaf culture, culture, right? Some people say deaf community. There's a lot of discussions regarding that deaf culture, deaf community. It really depends your background, where you're from, where you're living. Sign language itself, just like spoken languages, even in the USA, have accents, different ways of saying things, and so it varies quite a bit. And it's the same thing with sign language. Here, for example, where I live in California, USA, I might say ocean, right? But another place, they might say, beach, or they might say, beach or beach, right? Ocean, same thing. They sign it differently depending on where you're from. So many signs have still yet to really be established as acceptable universally, right? You're still going to find, variances depending on where you go. Another example of that would be like computer, right? Here in California, we tend to use computer because you use your brain. It's a thinking machine, computer. But older folks might, do the reel to reel computer, right? Or they might say computer or computer, right? And as an interpreter, I always accept what the person's using, right? Even if it's wrong 100%, I still use it as they're out of respect and also because it's what they understand. And being flexible with your sign language while you're learning, it doesn't matter what your teacher taught you. If the deaf person or the person you're speaking with, doesn't like it or doesn't understand, be flexible and try to learn from them and ask them, well, what do you prefer? Or what do you know to be right? And accept that and use their sign. So, deaf culture, right? Most cultures in this world have a place. For example, if you wanted to speak Vietnamese, you might go to Vietnam or Vietnam, depending on how you want to say it. But where is deaf land? Where is deaf culture, right? It's everywhere, actually. And with that, you should know also that sign language is only 40% universal, right? It's not the same everywhere. But with that 40%, if you go to a foreign country, or a different land and you meet a deaf person, typically they can figure out communication within less than an hour. they'll understand each other just based on that 40% that's universal. And so it's really amazing in a way, right? So a little background on that. This is always a good idea. Suppose you're at work, maybe you're a doctor, a nurse, a teacher. Many people just don't think about, facing each other, right? Even in a doctor's office, if you have an interpreter, through Zoom or something on a tablet, right? They both want to look at the interpreter, right? They're not looking at each other. The ideal situation is the hearing person who's talking should be right next to the interpreter who's interpreting and they're talking, right? So talking person, blah, 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 interpreter, right? And so that way the deaf person sitting across from them can actually look at the hearing person talking and the interpreter right next to them. And then they get the fluid conversation, because the hearing person might get upset and have an expression on their face, or they might be happy. You know how sometimes even on email, things are misunderstood without the context. Well, it's the same thing when you're interpreting. If you don't see the person's expression, you don't know if they're being sarcastic. You don't know if they're joking, they're being serious. So it's always good to be facing each other when signing, and also good to be facing each other when you have an interpreter next to the hearing person. All right. I'm your new instructor. Yes, I've taught full semesters, and I'm going to teach you a full semester here through YouTube and other channels. Our YouTube channel, this is the sign for YouTube. I'm using the Y on the palm like this. YouTube is American Sign Language Services Community. And just a few days ago, we were over 2,000 subscribers, which I'm really happy that everyone is interested in learning sign language. You'll see from this point on the old information, or the old videos that I've posted on that channel. Really, I'm going through my own learning experiences, right? Learning experiences. Uh, COVID hit, right? This is the sign for COVID hit, and we all had to teach online, right? They forced us within a minute to learn Zoom, and all the information and content we had to upload, right? Through Canvas, different means on YouTube, posting videos as well. And many of the videos I created for my students at that time are still on YouTube. And some of them are embarrassing for me, yes, because I was still struggling learning my style of teaching. And as well as there's some conflicts with deaf instructors. Many deaf instructors who teach ASL have their own rules about how everyone should teach. Yeah, most of them want me to pretend like I'm deaf and teach as a deaf person, for example. The thing about that is you're forced to read a lot of writing on the blackboard, also a lot of captioning on videos. The point is, you're still learning through English. It's just not spoken. Instead, it's writing, right? And so instead, here, I'm speaking and signing at the same time and not putting a lot of captioning and things for you to read, right? So you can watch the videos, you can slow them down on YouTube at any speed you want. And then later you can write your questions and ask for clarification on, for example, today ASL Sign Language Day 1, right? That's why we're going to have tutoring. That's why we're going to talk about it and make clear what it is that wasn't, clear. So this means vague, or foggy, that sort of thing. Okay. So welcome. And let's see here. So next, why do deaf people use that sign to represent hearing people, right? So hearing, right? And so Uh, to a deaf person looking at a hearing person, all they see is this, right? Right? It's just constantly spewing out of the mouth, right? It's just going and going and going, and they're just like, they never stop, right? That's some people's perspective about the hearing world. And so this picture gives you an example of that. You can see, the person's like on the phone, maybe they're upset or something, but the mouth is always, going, always moving, right? So that's the sign for deaf, right? So ear to mouth, deaf, deaf, hearing, right? Hearing. So that gives you a little bit of information regarding sign language between deaf and hearing. So, how many of you know a deaf person, right? Or have met, right? So when you meet, it's two people standing up, right? Walking and then meeting, right? You never say I met you, because if you say it that way, that means you're going down on them, right? And that's wrong. In sign language, that means something else, as well as in the hearing world, that means something else. So be clear, it's two people walking and meeting each other, right? So, hi, it was nice to meet you, right? But you're over there, right? So, for the camera, you're over there, I'm over here. So, I would be walking towards you to meet you, right? So, you also want to use direction, make sure you're signing it the right way. If you're talking about these friends, meeting each other and they're standing there and there, then that's appropriate because that's where they are. And it makes sense visually when you see it in the correct way. So, what should you do if you meet a deaf person, right? So, you can wave, hi, deaf, you, and that's usually enough to start. And if they're deaf, you can always see it in the eyes, right? Because the deaf person is always, observing, right? And this on the palm means like searching, and there's certain things, that tip off a deaf person to whether or not sign or if you are deaf yourself. So it's that kind of thing. But anyway, the first thing you should do if you see a deaf person and you want to try to communicate is just say, hi. This means, oh, I see, I see. So, hi, you deaf? And if they look away or they go away, they're probably not deaf. But what should you do? You introduce yourself, right? You say, hi, deaf. Oh, you live here locally, right? So this means in the area, right? You live here, right? You never start with your name. There tends to be a few questions before the name because the reason why they ask you those questions is they want to know if they want to get to know you, right? So it might be like deaf culture or community background. Are you part of the deaf community? Is what they want to know, right? Do you live locally or are you just visiting and never come again, right? You might be a tourist, for example, right? So they tend to ask a few, investigation or curious questions uh, before they ask your name. If they ask your name, then maybe they want to have a friendship with you, right? For example. So anyway, we can touch more on that later. So this is what I was just saying, right? You greet the person, you say hi, nice to meet you, right? That's expressing friendship. So this is friends, right? You're using your fingers and saying friends or friends, right? You don't have to bend them, friends, right? So hi, and your facial expression shows the friendship, right? If you're like, right? It tends to be like you maybe don't like deaf people if you have that kind of expression. Or if you say, right? You say deaf, I know you, right? They might look familiar, right? And this, means like the face, and you're saying familiar, and this also means no. This is how deaf people applaud, right? You're like this, but you put them up high, wah, right? Instead of doing this, they'll typically do this in a situation where they want to applaud, maybe a performance or something like that, or even your signing skills. If you're a student and I'm your teacher, I might say, you got it, right? Or you got it, right? I wouldn't say got it like this because that means to grab something and actually catch it, right? When I would say instead, you got it, right? Or or this success, right? Deaf people also know this as PAH, pa, right? I mean, finally, you got it, pa. And you'll hear that if you're in the deaf community as well. So, how many signs have you learned so far, right? We can discuss that in our tutoring session. All right. Well, I just put a few slides thinking it would be a short show, like 10 minutes, and we're already at over 20 minutes now. So, and that's the other thing you should know, deaf time, right? That's something that a lot of deaf people will talk about, right? They'll say, oh, deaf time, because deaf time tends to be exaggerated, meaning, like, for example, if you have a 15-minute appointment with your doctor, and a deaf person goes to the doctor, you can expect that 15 minutes to, stretch to about 30, 45 minutes. Even with friends, right? When a deaf person sees another deaf person, oh, they tend to want to catch up, everything that they haven't had a chance to discuss for some time. And so that's called deaf time, right? There tends to be add. Oh, I thought of something else. Let me add that. Oh, something else just came up. Oh, by the way, have you seen so and so, right? Add. And so it tends to be, a little bit of a stretch in terms of conversation more than hearing people. All right, with that, I'm going to cut here, and we will see you for the next class. We're going to go ahead and post it, right? Try to give you as much advance warning as possible for when the class is going to come up. But for now, we're just going to keep going step by step. All right, we'll see you next class. All right, we are back. Yes, we are. Today we're going to teach you 20 words using ASL phrases in sign language. So I want you to check out the list. We have it there in case you are curious what we're going to be teaching in this lesson. We're going to have many. This is just the first of many. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and people who are not qualified to be teaching are teaching, and they're teaching it so wrong. So that inspired us to go ahead and produce this program. We are American Sign Language Services Community. Let's go ahead and get started. So, number one, hello, hi. If you just met a deaf person, you might say, hi, you deaf? That's the first thing you would say, right? You would say, hi, You deaf? Maybe it's someone you already know. How are you? How you? See the fingers rolling together? How you? Some responses might be good, bad. It's like good. Instead of it going straight out, you're just taking it and throwing it down. Bad. But it has to have the facial expression to match. That's an important part of deaf culture is the facial expressions tend to say more than the hands. How are you? So. How are you? Happy. Yay! Happy. Just the hand again. Happy. How are you? Hungry. How are you? Tired. Tired. How are you? Sleepy. And the facial expression matches sleepy. You deaf? I don't know. Sign. I don't know. Nice to meet, except it's us, right? Nice to meet you. There's two people walking towards each other. Nice to meet you. How are you? Oh, sick. Using your middle finger. Sick. Oh, sorry. Sorry. It's okay. Are you spelling it out? No. Okay. Okay. So, how are you? Okay. Once, right? How are you? How you feel? Okay. Okay. How are you? Okay. Okay. Your T like this? Bathroom. I've seen other people signing it so wrong. The correct way to sign it is the T, bathroom. Where is the bathroom? And you have to have that puzzled, inquisical look on your face. Where? Bathroom, right? And you can have your legs crossed and you can be going, bathroom, bathroom, right? For example, please, please, thank you, thank you, welcome, welcome, to the ear, to the mouth, deaf, deaf, you, deaf. Oh, you hearing. That means like speaking, right? You deaf? No, oh, you hearing. Me learning from the book to the mind. Me student. Me learner, right? Absorbing it from the written material, putting it in my mind, and I'm a person, right? Student. Me student, right? You could say, I'm ASL student. Or you could say, I'm sign student. All right? All right. That's all we have for today. See you next video, which will have 20 more.